Hi, Marco. Happy Wednesday evening, and thanks for
Hello.
coming back on.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think at this point, you're outside of Daniel Marsh-Patrick. I think you're probably up there as the person I've had on about the most at this point. This is the
Oh, wow.
seventh or eighth time, at least, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years that you've been on. So thank you for
Well, yeah,
returning as always.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's always a pleasure, and it's always entertaining also to have the conversation. We were just chatting before the live that the difference between this and a recorded session is that here we can have interaction, questions answered. This makes everything more interesting.
Oh no, exactly, and I mean, I'm there with you when I present as well. It's the I get bored having to hear myself talk in a vacuum for an hour on the same topic. Like I much prefer the conversations, and it at least gives every time you present a different flavor. So it's adding value rather than just watching a recording. So 100%, and encouragement for anybody. In the chat right now as well too. Ask questions as we go through all this. We all three of us very much prefer this to be conversational. So
nice.
But yeah, I think the last couple of months has certainly been exciting. With the continued release of UDFs. But as I'm sure you agree, like it's been a very good year for DAX when it comes to new sandboxes to play in.
It has been released less than 1 month ago. It has just been 1 month. Now, of course, we had access before, because we were, in the beta. But from a public standpoint, the release was the week of the FabCon in Vienna, which was mid-September. So I think it was 3 weeks ago, three weeks ago, less than 4 weeks ago. So it's actually less than 1 month.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you demoed it at least at SQLBits and a few other spots, but nobody else had access to it. It was it was like preview.
Yeah, I mean, we shown a preview of this feature at SQLBits in June, but also at the FabCon in the United States, in Vegas, where I was with Jeroen, who is the product manager for DAX. And we presented demos in very preview of the DAX user-defined functions and the time intelligence, the calendar-based time intelligence, which is the other big announcement. And I think that the funny thing is that, to be honest, I missed my prediction. So my prediction was that in the short term, the time intelligence function would have been, more attractive for the users, and only over time we would have seen the rise of the user-defined function. So my expectation was that in a few months we would have seen the functions. What is happening is actually absolutely the opposite, and not that the calendar-based time intelligence functions are getting traction. It's not that they are not getting traction, but it's a problem that is interesting for people who create a new project today, because if they already have a project that is working, they already solved the problem in some way. So even if there is a new feature, they should refactor existing code, that change the measure, potentially change the report. It's a big impact. Whereas the user-defined functions increase the tool set that you have, which means that without changing what you already deployed, you could start creating functions to take advantage, for example, of the libraries I will show you. And for the enterprise projects, of course, there is a bigger impact. So I always suggested to not modify an existing project just for the sake of modifying it. That doesn't make sense. But for a new project, you definitely have to take a look at the UDF, because this could change the way you project a semantic model, especially if you think that the semantic model has a long lifetime and you want to maintain and extend it over time. You should start today using user-defined functions. I know it's in preview. Should we go in production? It's a long conversation, but without any doubt, what I continue to suggest to people, I will repeat also at the end of the session, we have to provide feedback to Microsoft, but the best feedback should be, we fix this to go GA. Go GA as soon as possible, then add features. Personally, I don't see that any of the features that we would like to add, and there are many, is something that should be implemented before going GA. Okay, there is nothing that we have seen so far, bugs aside, of course, but nothing that we have seen so far that without this don't go GA because otherwise blah blah blah. That
so no gaps remaining for at least version 1, like large gaps.
We would like to have many new features, okay?
Sure, yeah.
Many. But none of the features that are missing should be a reason to wait to go GA. And the reason is that if you don't go GA, you don't enable many large projects to start with UDF. It's very important because it's basically, this feature has many, can be interesting from many point of view. Now then we have to show what this feature is. But the idea is that a low-hanging fruit is that, I can get a library, and in 2 seconds, I have an SVG in my report that I would have never be able to create by myself. Wonderful, right? This doesn't change a big project. In a big project, you want to create your own function. So you don't want to just consume an existing function. You want to create new functions to build the foundation for the calculations of your measures and calculation groups and whatever else. And if you have to go in production with the project and the feature is not GA, you might say, wait, right? So
100%.
we know what it means. And so in a few environments, we can take a risk. I mean, we know that this feature is not going to be abandoned. This feature is going to be released at a certain point in GA, but it's just a question of when. So I can take the risk for SQLBI, for example. SQLBI, we already use the function, who cares? But for a larger company, maybe that they don't have the confidence, they don't have the, just the trust.
Well, there's a lot of companies that, from a security perspective or per performance or reliability, like they will refuse to allow anything in production that is still a preview feature. So I would agree on needing to get it out. And just as a brief comment on your point of like the fact that, as you said, you thought time intelligence was going to be like the steamroller initially for the new calendar features and all that. But I do think that there is certain advocates like NJ Park with talking about SVGs and Kurt Bueller, but I think a large part of a lot of the fervor that's come around this, I think, is like, we can start, like we've now made custom visuals a lot easier, which makes a lot of the end users happy. So I think that's to me, part of the explanation on why there's been so much hype around it is all these complex patterns can be kind of hidden and normalized and centralized. So it seems like there's many creative ways people are finding to use UDFs, which is really cool. It's like kind of the Wild West a little bit right now.
I see in the comments as well some more support about getting to GA. I think it's a good thing, and I think it's what we should keep telling Microsoft as well. They do listen to the community. They've had a history of sometimes having stuff in preview for a long time, so I think getting
visual calcs.
Is a
I saw the comment from Jake, and UDF make DAX closer to most of the existing programming languages. And actually, now I want to show what a function is. But the idea is that you can create a function, and then you can reuse the function. Now, this feature is available in SQL, true. But SQL doesn't have libraries, okay? So, you can find a function on the web, and you can download the function, copy the function, and paste the function in your code. It just works. But we don't have, an ecosystem of libraries in SQL. But if you think about Python would be nothing without libraries, nothing, right? Python would be a language that nobody uses. Like other languages, think about C#. C# is powerful and adopted because there are thousands of libraries. Without libraries, it's nothing, right? Any language, yeah, the language by itself can be good or bad, but the ecosystem makes the difference. And what we start to see is that now DAX is closer to those languages. Of course, it will never be a programming language, but it has this reusability concept that enables creating libraries. And what Jake said is, if we want to go serious in creating libraries, we need a few features, 100%. However, for the functions that you might want to create within a company for the large enterprises, you don't need it. So when we say we want features for the more advanced thing, and we can already do something today. It's not that we cannot, it's just that we would like to do more. We are already, we want to do also this. It's not that we cannot do anything today, but we are in some way, we see that we could do much more if we had more features. More features meaning more flexibility in how to manage parameters, in how to expose the function with a dynamic number of parameters, and a number of things. But this is the detail. If you create your set of functions for the semantic model that you have in your company, to be honest, you have already 90% of what you need, to be honest. So you could start today. So that's the reason when I say, look, that's okay, but the feedback should be wonderful, go GA as soon as possible. Then we have another list of things to do, because this will unlock, because these projects can take months. So actually not going GA for 6 months means that you could have a project that could have been released in production, and it will never adopt a function, because then adopting functions later will mean refactoring the entire model, which is a very large cost.
Oh yeah.
For this reason, I say before creating a few functions for an existing model is one thing. Refactoring the entire semantic model, removing the code from the measure, putting them in the functions, I don't know when it is justified. I don't know. There could be cases, but not many. And just for the sake of doing that, it doesn't make sense, unless you have a serious performance problem that the function can solve. But again, it's not a trivial operation. It's a very expensive operation. So there should be a very, very good reason to do that. Anyway.
Well, I would agree. I think hopefully with this, they make it very iterative and don't let things rot forever in the preview pane.
No, I feel we've been talking around them. I'm sure there's a few people who yet to see them.
Let's show something. So,
so I think
can you share my screen? So
there you go.
I have a few slides, but actually I would spend most of the time playing with the code and answering questions, because we have on SQLBI.com. So my name is Marco Russo, by the way. I work at SQLBI. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. I work at SQLBI, where we produce content about, not here, sorry, not the agenda, here. Well, we produce content about the DAX data modeling, and you can find on our website. One of the last 2 articles is about user-defined functions. There is a video from Alberto that shows the basics, so you can review that. You can see a few information there. There are also links to the documentation where you can find more. And so actually, this is the agenda of the presentation I usually deliver, but actually what I want to do is more interactive this time. So we don't have a Q&A at the end. I accept questions at any time. And so let's see what is a DAX user-defined function. Very quickly, just 2 slides. The idea is that the problem we want to solve is reuse code. Yes, there are other techniques to do that, but not a real one with parameters, with data types, classic features of a function. Okay, the techniques that are listed in the slide are just workaround. And the idea is that we just have a function. A function can have parameters and return something. The result of a function in DAX can be a table or a value, your choice, which means that you can use a function where you create a measure, but you can also use a function to provide a parameter to the filter of calculate, because a filter is a table, and you can provide the table as a parameter. Or you could use a function to create a calculate table, for example. Imagine you have always the same calculate table that you create in many models. You can just provide a few parameters, and you get a table. You just write 1 line, done. So how does it work? You can see in the slide an example of the syntax. Let me just zoom it, because this way I can draw on the screen. So here, this is the definition of the function. What matters, I would say, is the part I'm highlighting now. So this is what we call a function. The remaining part is just code we add depending on the environment, okay? And depending on the tool that you use or you will use to create a function, you might have to create this function keyword, define function. The evaluate you see here is just to, execute a function. So now I switch to Power BI Desktop, and so we can start to play. So I prefer to explain this with the real world. So here I have this empty window, because the first place where we can see a function in action is in the DAX Query View. What is the DAX Query View, for those of you that don't know? So you can write evaluate followed by a table. So if I write evaluate product, I can see, give me all the rows, all the products, like select star from product in SQL. Now, you can use evaluate to display a table. So for example, if I create a table that has only one row, one column, I could display the result of a measure, sales amount. And this is a way I can use the code to test a measure. And I could use also other DAX functions here to manipulate the filter context, to manipulate the calculation, and so on. Now, within this calculation that I could create in the DAX Query View, I can create elements that are local to the query. For example, and this is existing, I'm not introducing anything new now, okay? Define measure. I want to create a measure in the sales, connected to the sales table, that is called double sales. And double sales is just equal to sales amount, which is an existing measure, multiplied by 2. Okay, now my double sales could be, in the result. So I want to show sales amount and double sales, just because I want. And I click run, and now I have 2 results, right? I have 2 results, which are, this is the first one is sales amount, and the second one is double sales. So far, nothing new. This is just DAX code as we always wrote. Now, the syntax I'm using is called a query measure. So I created a measure that is local to this query. This is what I did. Now, with the same syntax, and this is the first of the user interface we can use to define a function, we can say, well, you know what? I have a function, which is a double value, where I provide a value, num, equal to. So the syntax is, I provide the function name, I provide the name of the function of the function is equal to, I have to put 2 parentheses, and between these parentheses, I can provide nothing. The function has no parameters. Or, in this case, I have a single parameter called num. And the result is equal greater than goes to, the way many people pronounce it, goes to num multiplied 2. So if you think about what I'm doing, it's very similar to what I did in this definition. But now I'm not saying that I want to multiply by 2 sales amount. I want to multiply by 2 anything is provided here. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so now I could write here another line where I say, well, double value. And you see that now we have IntelliSense shows here that this, look at that. Oh, sorry, I made too fast. So double, okay, parenthesis. No, come on. I don't have IntelliSense anymore. Double, this one. So Control 1. Not my day. Okay, Control 1. Here we go. So this symbol says this is a function. There is a function here that is called double value. Okay, and when I type tab, you see that when I open the parentheses, at the moment we don't have anything here that tells me what to do with double value. So I have to remember, oh, I have a parameter. But let's say I created this with this is the description of double value. Okay, and if I do that, hopefully, if it works, now we have.
There you go.
Yeah, here we go. We have, so you see that the description we define before the function, please note we use 3 slashes.
Triple.
Not 2,
okay.
3. I see here this description here, and you also see finally what I was not able to see before, but because it was hidden by the other window, that double value has one argument called num. So I know that there is one argument and I know the name of the argument. Okay. So double value, for example, sales amount. Okay, here we go. And now I run this, and of course the result we see is the second line is the same as, sorry, the third line is the same as the second line, because I'm just using, in one case I'm doubling sales amount by using the measure, in the other case I'm using the function. Okay, very easy, very trivial. Now, so far, what I did, created a function just in the query. But as you see, there is a link here, this link, update model, add new function. If I click here, I will add this function to the model, right? So if I click here, bang. Are you sure? No, undo, okay? If you're not sure, cancel. But if you're sure, update the model. Now, at this point, two things happen. One is that the function has been added to the model. How can I know that? Oh, look at that. We have functions, double value. So we have the function listed there, right? So we know that we have a function. Remember, the function is not a feature for the report user or the report developer. The function is a feature for the semantic model developer, the person who create measure, okay? Not the person that create a report using existing measure. That's not for them. It's for someone who knows how to write a DAX measure or a DAX calculated column or a DAX table, but I say measure to keep it simple. Okay, so that's the reason why we see functions in the model view, but if we go in the report view, we have no track of a function. And this is correct. Please don't ask, oh, I want to see the no, there is no reason why you should see the function here. No reason. This is not a feature for the end user. I heard this feedback a lot, and I think, no, you don't get what the function is for. If we provide a function here, then the next step is that, okay, how can a user use the function? No, the function is a function, is part of the programming language. It's like you don't expose, for example, a function in DAX there. If you want to use that, you just create a measure and you call the function. That's how it works. Okay.
So
and
just as like
the function is intelligence. So yeah, go
just
ahead.
one like maybe audience, like a subtype of an audience. I'd still like, you know, they're because they're self-service, simplified, which is just connect to model, use what's in model. I'd put a very small bucket of people in the what I would call advanced self-service, where they're the ones who might build off of a PBIX, but they use the report scoped measures where you could add locally. So there's for that small audience, like that's the one exception where I might say that like a downstream report developer may call upon like
I get it, but this is a user interface problem from my point of view.
I agree.
Let me show you this. Let's do this live, okay? So I didn't prepare this, but I create a blank report and I connect this. I create a new report and I create a live connection with Contoso, okay? I don't have functions there, but I just want to show you the idea I have in mind. So I don't need. So I go to the Power BI semantic model and I choose Contoso and I choose this one, Contoso 10K connect, okay? I'm connecting live to another version of the same file I have now. At this point, in this model, I can create measures. Now, the thing is that if you are the user that knows how to create a measure, you should be able to go in this model view. And if you go in this model view, you can see which functions you have.
Okay.
But the report, there is no reason why you should see the functions here. Because the function is not something that you can put in the report. If you put the function here, it's obvious that the next request is that how can I put the function in my report? No, you can go here. Now, okay, now there is a problem here. Can I create a measure here? Yes. But then when I create the measure here, at this point, I can create a measure here and I can call a function, of course. For example, at the moment, you cannot create a local function. So unless they change something, but I cannot go here and I don't have a way to create a local function. Is this an absolute limitation? No, if they want, they could extend the local model to also create a local function, because a local function is just a function created in the query. Okay, is a query function, like it could be a query measure. So you create a local measure, you're creating a query measure, so they could do the same. At the moment, this is not available. This is not, because it requires an additional implementation. At the moment, the function is only defining the semantic model, but there are no technical reasons to not allow that. The point could be, what's the point of creating a function that is local to a single report? In reality, I could say, yes, there are reasons, especially the moment you have libraries. I might want to import a library with an SVG visualization that I only use in this report. Now I'm forced to import that library of just SVG visualization into the semantic model. Maybe that is, but again, we're talking about, we're cutting corners now. So this is something that can be changed later, but to be honest, so I don't see a technical reason why it should not be enabled. It's just that, okay, it's additional user interface, additional control.
I would agree. Yeah, like I would agree that I think it should be extended out to be able to, because if you can create a local report scoped measure, you should be able to create report scoped functions. It still validates to standard DAX query at the end of the day. I did have one question, just by the way, from Jake on you with would it work with composites? So not creating a function, but if you composite it, can you still access custom functions?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Today, what you don't have probably is IntelliSense. But if you know, I know. I mean, if you create a local model, the local model, if I remember correctly, the local model can use the functions in the remote model, but when you create a measure in the local model, you cannot see IntelliSense working properly. I think that this is the problem we have today. But again, I mean, we are in the first preview, in the first month. Come on, I mean, this can be and probably will be fixed. Okay, I don't expect. So these are the kind of missing features for GA, and they probably want to. So why is it is not in GA today? Because these features are missing, of course. So you have to complete everything. But let's say the feature is there. I mean, the feature works. It's not that it doesn't work. There is just some element in the user interface that are missing yet. Okay.
And Jay will be on actually in a few weeks to talk about the time intelligence functions. So I'll write these questions down for him.
Yeah, of course. So what can I do at this point? Well, if I create a new measure, okay, and I create a new measure here, test equal to, okay, I'm creating a new measure where I want to get the sales amount. I want to use my double value parenthesis, and I provide, for example, sales amount. Okay, it's the same thing that I did before, but now I'm creating a measure and I'm using a function in the model, because of course at this point I can only use functions that are defined in the model. And if I click enter, I can put my test measure here and I have double the number. I can, as usual, I can fix the decimal number and so on. Just to be clear, a function is a function. Okay, a function returns just what you ask: a number, a string, a table. A function doesn't provide format, doesn't provide name of the table where this function, there is no table. It's just a function. Okay, like in any other language, a function is just a function, and here a function is just a function. It has to be seen as a part of the tools that you have. It is not actually an object that you use. It's not a shortcut to create a measure. I mean, if you know the calculation, the format, and the name and the table, that's a measure. It's not a function. It's a measure. I don't see why we should. Now, if you have to create, I anticipate the question. Let's say you say, Marco, true, but I have a function that I can call with 20 different combination of parameters. And so now I have to create 20 measures. Do that. I mean, it's your job, right? So you can create, you can use a script. I mean, if that is your problem, be creative. You can write a C# script in Tabular Editor. 2 is free, 3, or go to your favorite LLM, explain the situation, explain, oh, we have this new wonderful syntax. I have to create any measure that do this. I give you 2 examples, create the others. Because you can, I mean, if you describe well enough what you want to do, you don't even have to write a script. You just go to an LLM and it works. For those kind of things, the LLM is great because you can actually validate the result and not be too worried about what I'm importing, right? You're not importing tens of thousands of lines of code. You don't know what you're doing. You just
especially now with TindleView, yeah.
Exactly. You could do this in TindleView directly. So I think that this is the thing. So I want to be very clear because people who are use it just to Power BI don't know programming languages. They expect the function to be like a superset of the measure. No, the function is below the measure. It doesn't have all the feature. A measure is a measure. Something that does a user is a contract for the user interface to provide a number of information. Description, format, dependency of table where it has to be seen, folders, you have the folder, you have a number of, the function is a function, it's just there, you have a list of functions, that's it, okay, that's a function, okay, nothing more, nothing less. Now, this is a, say, okay, what's the point? We just have to multiply by 2. Of course, no, we can do a lot of things. So this is just to introduce the syntax, but I want to show the second user interface where we can already create new functions, which is TindleView. For example, if I go in TindleView and I drag and drop the function I created, double value, I drag and drop, and now I have code that create or replace this function in any report. Okay, don't worry about the DAX Query View. Let's say the syntax highlighting, auto completion start to work. TindleView a little bit behind. Okay, don't trust too much of these red lines. It's good code. Indeed, if I change this and I write 3 and I click apply, it just works. Now if store 2, it works. Okay, it just works. The thing is that you can also remove the lineage tag if you want, because this is a function that I can copy. I can go to another model. Let's go to another model. I have another model here ready. Let me see the number 2 here. Okay, I have another model. I can go here. I can go in TindleView, new script, paste the code, apply, and now I created the function double value, also in this model. Okay, this is the principle to share the code between models. I can take a function, one or more functions, and I can copy and paste this code somewhere else. And now all of a sudden I say, oh, wow. So, okay, within a model, I can create a number of calculations that can be, shared across different measures. But I can also have a more complex logic than this one, of course, that I can reuse across model. I go from 0 to the moon in 1 second. Because now I've shown you one line of code. Okay, let's take a look at a more complex function. I show you immediately what I will show at the end. Look at this report. This report has here. We want to create this visualization. Oh, let me use this. Okay, come on. It doesn't work. Okay, you see that I have this late blinking late is blinking, right? Yep. Right. This is what is called an SVG measure. So it's a measure that displays a value or a number through HTML in an SVG format. So the result of the measure is actually a string that contains the description of this sentence late, the border of the button, the blinking effect, all in HTML. Okay. And to be honest, I'm not able to do that for 2 reasons. First, I don't know much the language that I have to use, also CSS. Second, there is no way I am able to obtain the quality graphical result of this blinking late. Okay, no way. I will never be able to do that alone. Now, what can I do? Well, if someone wrote this and I like this, I like this a lot, right? Good. Let's take a look at how did we write this status SVG. So we are using a measure, right? And this measure is just one line of code. just the measure name. That's it. Inside, before user-defined function, this was the code. Let me show you. 40 lines. Okay, 40 lines of DAX to do this. Now it is just one line of code. And the status SVG is something that I can copy and paste from this model to another model. I don't have to worry. I pass the parameter. It just works. Now, of course, you say, Marco, but this way you have the sentence here. Let me show you. You have this sentence, on time, late, WIP. What if I want to customize them? What if I want to provide? You can provide parameters. You can create a function that has more parameters. And of course, instead of writing one line with one parameter, I will provide, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 parameters. And here is where what Jake was mentioning. There is a point where we might want to have more flexibility in the parameters. Like, for example, in this case, how many states do we want? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. And being dynamic in that, there could be some limitation. I mean, there is something we can do, but we have to talk. So there are features that could be added to the syntax of the function to make it easier to manage a function that had a variable number of parameters or other features that we would like to have. So that's what Jake was mentioning in the previous comment. But now,
and it looks like a max of 12 today too.
Sorry?
No, I was just saying, it looks like he's mentioning there's a max of 12 parameters you can have, I think, today.
Yeah, that's a limitation that probably is going to disappear very soon. And the limitation would be so high that we will never be able to. So that's not a problem. I already talked with the Microsoft developers.
Oh, nice.
Okay, that's fine. We're good.
Good to know.
No, that is not an issue. Okay, and then the coming releases, that will be fixed. I don't remember if it is in October or in November. Hopefully already in October, that limitation will be gone.
Perfect.
But I want to go back to Earth. So now we went to the moon, right? I will come back to the moon soon, but now I want to go back to Earth because I want to introduce a few elements of the syntax of the function, just to say, okay, this is just a single parameter. What can we do for real? Okay, what can we do? So I go 1 second to the slide, just because the slide could be helpful to make sure that I didn't forget anything. And we can provide one or more arguments. Now, the question is, when do we evaluate the argument? And here's where the functions are extremely powerful. We can provide an argument by value, which is the default, or by, let's say, reference, or as an expression. So you see that we can extend the parameter with this column name, okay? Where we are more specific about what is the intended use of the parameter. So if you use value, it means what? I show you. Let's go back to the first example I made using the DAX Query View. Okay, because using the DAX Query View, I can manipulate the code in a very simple environment, and you probably have a better idea about what is happening. So let's say that this double value, okay, let's call this. Let's create another function. I don't like this one. Let's create a function that is value show Canada. Okay, calc Canada. I know it's, but just to show the point. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say we have I don't know, calculation is x. Maybe I cannot calc. This one, okay, and here, okay, I can do this. I can do calculate of calcs. Calc is just the name of the variable, where the country of the customer is equal to Canada. Okay, now let's create another function very similar to this one, so we will see the differences, where we do the same. Of course, we cannot calculate Canada, so this calculate then a value, calculate Canada expression. And here, the difference is that this is val. So you see that the only difference between the two functions is that in this case, I'm using val. In this case, I'm using expression. Now, go back here. And if you remember, we display the sales amount in the first line. And in the second line, we display calc Canada value, just value, for sales amount, same value. And then calc Canada expression with the same sales amount. Okay, sales amount. Now I cannot. I have my problems. So everybody has his problem. I have to do this, otherwise I have problems. Sorry, I cannot leave if I don't do that. Okay. Now, if I execute the code now, what happens? Also this one. Let's run it, and you see that this line was Cal Canada value, and this line is Cal Canada expression. So the expression has a smaller number. Let's try to explain what happens. When I use val, it means that whatever I provided here is passed by value, which means that what the function receives is not the sales amount measure, but is the result of the sales amount measure evaluated when the function has been invoked. You can assume the following. Writing this code is like writing, we can do this here, var calculation equal calcs, return, and then you have the calculation here. Technically, this var is executed before invoking the function, but practically it doesn't make any difference. So what is the meaning of that? The expression we provide as an argument, when we provide the parameter, when we provide the argument by value, is evaluated when the function is invoked. And what we provide is the number, the result of sales amount. When we do this by expression, what happens is that this sales amount is executed here, right? It's like we do this. For this execution, we're doing this. So in other words, we provide the expression, and the expression will be evaluated wherever the function wants, which means that it could be evaluated multiple times in different filter contexts.
Okay.
Absolutely possible. And this makes a huge difference. That's the reason why at this point, when I have two problems. When I read this code, now if I read this code, looking at the code this way, I can see, oh, calculation is a variable which is calcs. Now, I write this code, calcs here, calcs here. If I read the code of the function, I already know. Oh, I want to see the code of the function when I call the function, right? It is not enough to see the description. I want to see the code. Good. Now, let's say that this is a good idea. Now, if you look at the code, you could be confused. What is calcs? You see 4 lines now, but imagine you have 50 lines, and when you go at the line 45, you have no way to see the declaration of calcs. And in any case, it will be a lot of time spent going back and forth. Oh, this is by value, by expression. What is this? A table, a column? What is this? So for this reason, we have defined, or let's say not defined, we propose a few naming conventions. Because without a naming convention, it could be very hard to understand what you're doing. So let's say that we want to use the naming conventions for the user-defined functions, okay? And so the user-defined functions, I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? You can do whatever you want. But before I talk about the name, for the parameters, if the function has a parameter, each parameter name should be, could be, no, it's not mandatory, but it's a suggestion. Camel case. Camel case means that the first 100%. Letter is lowercase, and then you have uppercase for the other letters, no underscore. Because this way, when I look at the code, I see the difference between a parameter and a variable or a table. Because variables and tables probably have other conventions. So usually a table has Pascal casing, and a parameter is camel casing. So first thing. Then the second problem is that, okay, calcs is good, right? Good. But now, how do I know that this is by value and this is by expression? Because when I see this by expression, it is important. I have to know. Imagine you have an iterator and you have an argument. Well, it's a big difference if it is a value or an expression, because an expression will be evaluated every time. If it is a measure, it will have a context transition every time. Now, we are used to see that when I read the DAX code, if I see a measure reference in an iterator, context transition. But now you don't have this help, right? Because you just see a name. And what is this name? You have to look at the definition. You see where I'm going? So how do I understand that? Now, because because I say, well, here you can provide any expression. Now, when I say this code, I clearly understand that, if I respect the naming convention, calcs, that's a value. I don't care. This is actually useless because this number doesn't change. But imagine you have calcs multiplied by sales amount. This makes sense. And I know that this calcs is not producing any context transition, right? It's just part of it's a parameter. It's just a number. I don't care. Whereas here, I say, oh, wait a minute. This is an expression. There's a context transition. Now, I don't have a context transition, but this is an expression. And this expression will be evaluated by this filter. If I had here something like SumX customer, now I know that I'm evaluating this expression for every customer. Whereas if I do the same here, SumX customer calcs, I know that I'm evaluating sales amount for every customer, but calcs is not evaluated for every customer because it should be passed by value, because the naming convention suggests me this is just a number or a string.
Right? Yep.
Now, I could be more specific. I could say, for some reason, I want you to provide a measure, not any expression, not a multiplication, just one measure. So I could say that using any ref, which means that I want this expression to be a reference. Now, actually, I would like to write measure ref, okay? In an ideal world, I write this, measure ref. But let's say that, okay, we don't have this yet, maybe one day, I don't know. But if it is only any ref, I could say, well, it is not just an expression, it's a reference to an expression, which, I mean, it's over. But the difference is that an expression could be anything, could be a function that does something. A reference is just a reference to an object, a column reference, a measure reference, a table reference. It cannot be a complex expression. And this is important because we could make assumptions. For example, I could say, well, this is a measure. So here, I no longer call this expression, I call this measure. Oh? And this way, if I want to also provide a table, I could say, I don't know, item table, which is another any ref exp. But I know beside the calculation, beside the declaration here, what I'm saying is that I want this to be a table. I want this to be a measure. Now, when I read the code, it makes more sense because what I see now is that I want to iterate this table and I want to compute this measure for every row of the table. That's clear. I mean, it's written. I don't have to go 50 lines above to understand what I'm doing when I read the code. When I use the function, when I just invoke the function, when I go to my measure, okay, let's add this function to the model 1 second. If I go to imagine I'm here, I'm creating my measure, I don't know anything, so I say, okay, someone told me that I can create a test2, which is equal to calc Canada expression. When I see the, item table, guess what? This is a table, the second is a measure. I don't have to invent new things, right? It's written there. Make sense? So this helps me using the function and reading the function. Again, it's not mandatory. You can invent your own convention, but if we use a convention that is common, and please give us feedback. If this convention doesn't make sense, tell us what to change. But if we can share a common naming convention, this will make it easier to share the code.
I would agree.
Okay. So open to get feedback about anything you will find in, this is in docs.sqlbi.com, by the way, docs.sqlbi.com, DAX style, DAX naming convention. There are several naming conventions also for other things, but the important part here is for the name of the functions and the parameters.
And maybe I'm getting ahead of what you'll eventually show, but I do know that you also, from the library that you have for UDFs, there's a naming convention as well for how to name the UDFs too, right?
Yes, I'm going there.
Good, yeah, I figured you'll be getting to that. Okay.
I'm going there. Now, I mean, I don't want to go too much into the technical detail of all the things that you can do. For example, just I could mention the filter context
People like
is the
it,
same
though.
filter context where you call the function. You don't have a context transition when you call the function. You can have a row context when you call the function, but the row context is not transferred to the function. But the row context still exists. However, it is not applied to a context transition if you calculate a measure into the function, which is kind of strange, but actually is good, because the alternative would be a very hard to use set of metrics and function, which means that if you want to provide a row context, a current row, to a function, you have to provide a table reference, and in some way you have to provide a current row of the table, or better, the values that you want to use. So let's say there are a few details that once you start exploring the function, you will understand. It is not just a macro expander like we described, because in terms of performances, for example, the function don't have a cost, because the code of the function is actually duplicated across the code, and it has no cost of calling a function. It's just the code that you write. But you don't have to duplicate the code. The code is written only once in the function, and it is not your business to worry about the code duplication or how the engine provides the best query plan for that.
Quick random question, but you can make a UDF that references another UDF. So like you know, obviously you could easily get a circular reference if you go back, but yeah, you can nest them, right?
Yes,
okay. That's how I thought.
The thing is, DAX is a language that does not allow and will never allow recursion. Recursion means that my function calls my function again in a direct or indirect way. So with DAX functions, you can have a function A that calls B, that calls C, that calls D, but you cannot call A again. Okay, you cannot go back. That's the idea.
Same with measures. Yeah. So same gate. Yeah, exactly. Logic checks and all that. Okay, but I would figure you could test them a little bit if there's like a sub variation of function A to go to function B. Okay.
Yeah. You can invent any kind of level. Now the thing is, and here is the important part. If you create, okay, so the fun part of the function is I import the SVG function, I use it, fun. The business important part of the functions is many large complex models nowadays are written trying to create structure for the measure that you have so that you don't duplicate code across measures. It's a very good intention. Every complex system try to create level of abstractions to make it simpler to manage the complexity of the model. Okay, so it's actually a good thing that we try to do that. Unfortunately, when you create multiple layers of measures, because you want to reuse the code of a measure in other measures, as long as you call the measure without any conditional statement, without complex elements, without iterator, without anything, so it's just A plus B, and A is C multiply F, and everyone is a measure that at the end is a simple sum. That's fine. As soon as you have the problem saying, oh, wait a minute, this calculation makes sense for one customer or makes sense for 1 year. So first of all, let's make sure that we only have 1 year in the filter context. Okay. As soon as you do that, you introduce in the measure an expensive part that create a fork in the query plan, create multiple variation of the possible execution plan. And this, at that point, when you have multiple layers, can multiply, right? Because you have 1 if here, 1 here, 1 here. You have like an explosion of the possible path of execution of the execution plan. And that creates huge performance issues, huge. Those people who try to create complex measure with complex logic, for example, to create like in a hierarchical visualization of the profit and loss or balance sheet, you want to show your accounts, so you have a hierarchy, you have complex calculation at the different hierarchical levels, is a total nightmare to write first, because it's not easy to write that. And second, it sucks from a performance point of view. The problem is, it is true that you have a common piece of logic that you want to reuse, But because you don't have a parameter, the only way you can provide a parameter to a piece of code that is in a measure is through the filter context. So you, at the end, you find people wrote, calculate measure with a number of filters just to provide through disconnected tables a few parameters to another measure. And this is just one of the many examples I have. I can talk for 2 hours giving you example of what you can
of course,
do.
yeah.
Now, the paradox is that if you remove this code and you just copy and paste the code into the original measure, and you remove all the conditions that are not interested for that calculation, your performance is great. But the problem is that, well, but if we write the code this way, it's impossible to maintain. That's exactly the point. With the functions, we remove that. The function, we explicitly provide, okay, my calculation depends on these 3, 4, 5, and different condition variables, values, whatever, expression, and you can do what you want. And because you can provide as an argument an expression, a table reference, a measure reference, a column reference, you can actually create a certain level of abstraction that can actually be used to reuse the code in multiple different situations. Not everything, I know, but really, it makes a huge difference. Problem is, it's not easy, not trivial to get your existing 500 measures based on this pyramid of, functions that are in 10 different levels and refactor everything using the function, because it is not that you can map one by one a measure to a function. You have to remove the logic that now provide the parameters this way or control the filter context this way. It has to be completely rewritten using the function. So that's the reason why I say for an existing model, if you have a serious performance issue, you might take a look. Otherwise, take a look at this feature for your next model, so that you don't make the mistakes. But if you start today using the measures only, you know that you start with the technical debt, which is you are using not the more efficient way to write this code today. Of course, until yesterday, we didn't have any. Actually, the option we had yesterday was to create the measures using a script that duplicated the code. The real solution yesterday was, I don't write the code using the measures. I write a code in C# or in a script language, and this is the part of the code that is shared across the different measures. And when I want to use a measure, I build the code with sort of template that generates the code using the right thing. But come on, it's a total nightmare, right? We have to reinvent the language.
I would agree.
So in certain extreme cases, I saw that, but it's not something that you will do for every model. And now we don't have a problem. We have a native support for that that we can use, right? So, but at this point, I want to introduce another consideration, which is, okay, so let's say that we want to, let's say, create calculation that we reuse for our model. Okay, so if you write a function for reusing calculation in your model, you can make assumptions about your model. Let's see an example. Okay, so let's say I want to create a measure now where I do, let's say, function discount sales customers with discounts. Okay, let's call this let's say it's customer with discounts. Okay, and the idea is that, okay, I have a customer table, which is a table, okay, any ref exp, and I have so this is the table of the customer. For each customer, I want to get discount, for example. The discount customer, which is another expression. This will be a column. So this will be a column. Yeah, why not? And the sales, the revenues measure. Okay, this is my definition. Yes, why not? Oh, this one. So actually, I'm doing. Sorry, this is. Ignore this for a moment. Let me write this in a comment, because I wrote already the version that I want to write later. I went too far. Sorry.
No worries.
Let's start with the function for the model. For this model, I want to create a function that is called the same name. So sales customer with discounts, which is a function that has no parameters and that has some X customer. I get the customer total. What is? Oh, I don't have the number. Why? So sad. I had to invent something. Oh, I could use customer key. Let's do this. I know. Okay. It's not a good idea. Let's say model 10, and then I do 100, this number divided by 100. Okay, so I know it's just a stupid thing. So this, let's say that for each customer, I have this variable, which is the discount. Okay, I'm inventing a discount. I don't know, and I return the discount multiplied by the sales amount. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
So I did my match. So this function could be used anywhere. Now, of course, why a function? This could be a measure, right? Okay, let's include an argument, which is, for example, x factor, x factor, okay, x factor, which is a value. And I replace this 10 with this x factor, okay? Here we go. Okay, now I have something that makes sense to be a function because I have a parameter. But this function can work in this model only because it depends on customer key, and sales amount. So we have a dependency on one table, one column, and one measure. Make sense?
Okay. Yep.
Now I can use this. Okay, if I add this function to the model, I can go to my measure. I can create my measure test 3. And I can call my sales customer with discounts, and I provide just 10, and that's it. And I can put test 3 here, and it just works. Here we go. Okay, I made a calculation with my function. We call this function, though, this function is called a model-dependent function. I can use it in my model. It's very, very hard to copy and paste this function into another model. Because if I copy and paste this function into another model, then I have to explain, oh, look, the function works, but you have to replace the table name. So you have to replace 3 places with, what you have. Make sense?
Yep.
So at this point, if I know that I'm creating a function for my model only, good, I'm good. I don't care. But let's say I'm in a company and I know that the business logic, this very complex, maybe secret business logic we define in the company has to be shared in other model for the same company, or maybe shared with other model with other company. I don't know. Shared with other models in general. Other models could have other names. The customer table could be customers with an S. It could be called supplier, or it could be called I don't know. Clients, for example, instead of I don't know. It could be different, okay? And the measure could be revenues instead of sales amount. So we could create a similar function which does not have independency from the model. Now, if I get this code, let me get this code here. And copy this code here. And I, of course, use customer table, discount customer column, and revenues measure. Okay. Now, I have to understand why the syntax is equal to. Okay. And of course, I also have to include X factor. Here we go. Now, what I did, I created a very similar version of the measure, of the function, that is called model independent. This function does not have any dependency from the model. Now, model independent is something that we described in the new version of the definitive guide to DAX. We decided to use this name to make this difference. This is not an official name that you will find in the Microsoft documentation. Maybe one day, I don't know. We don't have a way today to investigate into the dependency of a function. This is a missing part of the DMVs, for example. But one day the DMVs will show you the dependencies. And the idea, a model independent function has 0 dependencies, which means that I can get this function, I can copy this function into another model, I can use it, period, full stop, because everything is in the parameters. Now, you see that in the parameters, I described in an abstract way which dependencies I have over the model. Of course, using this function is more complex because you have to write. Now, if I rewrite this code using the model independent function, I can write, okay, this is independent, okay, because it has to have another name. So I will write this name where I provide as a parameter X factor, then I provide customer, then I provide customer key, and I provide the sales amount. Okay, so by doing this, let's see if I did this everything right. So I have to add this as a model function, and then now this function works. So now I have 2 versions of the same function in this model, but only because the model independent function is the one that I can share. The model dependent function is the one that I will use in my measure. I want to reduce the complexity to the minimum. So the complexity of specifying the binding between the model independent function and my model is in this model dependent function. Now, do you always have to write a code this way? No. No. Okay, the answer is no. But if you're going to create in a large organization many models where you have many of these calculations, you might want to do that for those calculations. Okay, I'm not saying every measure, because if we start to say, oh, every function has to do that, every measure should not have code and just call a model dependent function that calls a model independent function to do the calculation for everything, no matter what. This is just over engineering. I'm against it. Okay, the fact that I can do that is a very, let's say, very organized way to write the code. It has an additional cost. It has to be justified. I don't want to write triple the code that I will write normally just because someone wrote, oh, this is the standard. This is what we can do and should do in certain scenarios. And I would be happy to have people doing that. But I'm not saying, oh, now we have to write the code way because it's clean. It's good. No, that is not in. This is not what I'm saying. Okay, I want to be very clear. Just because I show this example is just because, okay, when I go to that level of complexity, I might want to introduce a rule that says, oh, look, for the calculation about the KPIs of the company, we want to do that all the times. If you do an SVG file, who cares? I mean, do whatever you want. I don't care. I mean, that's not important. Unless you create a library that you write up front, like Jack is doing. You want to create a library that many people will be able to use. Then you probably want to do some over engineering because you want to have the flexibility to extend the library in the future. And if you don't do that, you will often reach a point where the code is very, very complex and hard to manage. But this is just to explore, the space where we could go. Now, if I define a model independent function, how can I share this function with other people? That's an open question in reality, because technically what we can do, we can just go in Tyndall view, we can just get the function, the model independent one, get this code, copy and paste. At the moment, we don't have any standard way to do this. Oh, can I have a repository in my organization to share the... No, we don't have anything about that. What we have today is a website that we started 2 weeks ago, and I'm so happy, is growing very, very fast. daxlib.org. Okay, this website is like a repository. Imagine NuGet for DAX functions. And we introduced the notion of a library. What is a library? It's just a Tyndall file with model-independent functions. If you want to publish a library to DAXlib, there are instructions that I will show you, but basically you have a repository with functions written by many contributors. Everything is free, everything is open source, visible, because the function has to be visible. So for example, if I want to see, I'm literally opening something that I didn't see before, because this has been published today. I didn't even know that they published this function, so I'm opening this now. This is a dynamic function that has a filter date range in the clear presentation style provided. Basically it transforms something into a title. So if I look at the code, this is the code. You see, this is the code. You have these nice 270 lines of code that basically you say, oh, but 200, well, who cares? I mean, you have this. If you like this, you can just get this function, copy this function, and how? Just copy. Okay, copy. I go back in my model here. I never tried this function before. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I just, I have to go in the team view. Yes, apply. Okay, now I go, let me just get this name. And now we talk about the name in a moment. I got this name. Then I go here, I create a measure period. Okay, title equal to this one, parenthesis. What is title and date call? Okay, title is my title and date. Okay, here we go. Now I have this one. I probably want to put this I don't know, in here, and I have my title last 4 years, and now I can use for example a date slicer here, and I can transform this into this one, and I can share, and I can do this. Here we go. Wonderful. So I don't know if, I mean,
I like that one a lot.
Less time than thinking about, I had to write this. Of course, now I have I'm using 15 lines of 270 lines. I guess that now I'm doing something that is not using all the code that I imported, but who cares? I mean, we have, when you import a bitmap in your model, you have a few megabytes of data. Who cares about 200 lines of code that we never use? I mean, it just works, right? So that's the value of being able of sharing a function. So the idea
is your format strings, I'd say the format string one's actually one of my favorites. And that's like, I just looked, this 1,300 lines of code that are in there.
Yeah,
it's a long DAX measure.
So there are many functions. So if you go here, you can start here, just the browsing data. So you can go, home, browse packages. You can just browse the packages, or you can start to do some search, right? So you say, oh, I want to format something. Let's see, format. Oh, we have DAXlib format string. Probably maybe, this is, guys, this is in 2 weeks, right? This is in 2 weeks. I'm losing control of this. We created this website, and the first few days we said, we only have our 2-3 libraries. Then we published that, and after a few days, we started to receive a lot of contribution, and we are in the problem now, which is a good problem to have. We are trying to automate as much as possible the process for publishing the function, because of course we have to validate something, right? Because we want to make sure that the function is actually model independent. And we are looking at a way to automate the process now. So we are collaborating with Daniel Lotiker, which is working on something that will analyze the DAX code to do what Microsoft doesn't do today in the product. That tells you, this is dependent on the model or not. And that is what we are doing to have a repository for that, because the value of this is actually the more libraries we have, the better. And the idea is that, this is the experience you have now on the web, but very, very soon, actually, very, very soon, in external tools, you will have a direct integration with this website. So the website exposes this as a service too. And so you could have, like, for example, Tabular Editor 3, which shows you which functions you want to import. And if you imported a function, if there is a new version of the same function, you will get a notification. So, there is a new version of your SVG library. Oh, nice. So I get the new one, but there is something more that I can use. And you don't have to worry about copy and paste, because the tool will do that for you. Now, this will be available in Tabular Editor 3 for sure. Tabular Editor 2 probably, for sure in Bravo, even though it will take more time, and maybe in other tools, because actually we open all the services that support that, and we pay for hosting this this service, but we're happy to do that because this is the way we can actually have a very, very let's say quick adoption of the feature. And if we have a quick adoption of the feature, many models even just use one of those functions. Microsoft see, oh, functions are used by a lot of models, we have to release it. So that's the idea. The idea is that we want to push Microsoft to go GA because actually it's a feature that is used. And even just consuming an existing function, from one point of view, the quick advantage, I have something that I would not have had otherwise, and I save time. In the long run, we will have the GA sooner, so that it will be possible to use the functions in more complex model, just for the logic of the semantic model. So this is not intended to be a way to share your proprietary business logic for the KPI. That's of course not the case, but in principle, what we're doing here can then be also implemented within a company. Okay, so there is nothing that will stop Tabular Editor, for example, or someone else to create a repository within the company. Of course, if Microsoft will do something, we will just adopt the Microsoft standard. But usually Microsoft doesn't have the speed that we can have in releasing this. The same day they release the Power BI, we release this website, and after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we already have I don't know how many functions. So that's awesome from my point of view.
Well, and just I love the community aspect of this, but the thing that I want to call out is the fact that you mentioned that between Bravo, Tabular Editor, or a few of these other ones, there's going to be an auto linking and updating where it would be able to tell if you've installed in the model that you're editing any of these libraries, and hey, we noticed that there's an update. Would you, basically like to update this and put that in, so you'd have to do less copy pasting.
This is what I said. So tools like Bravo for Power BI, tools like Tabular Editor will have. Tabular Editor is very close to have this feature. Bravo we are committed to do that. Okay, we want to release the versions of Bravo that supported the new time intelligence feature and the DAX library, mainly to have an easy way to update the libraries, because today you don't have a net. Ideally, this should be like in Visual Studio. Or in Visual Studio. So you should have just something you open Power BI, there is a new version, right? At the moment, it is not something provided by Microsoft. So, we created a .org website just because we don't want to, if one day Microsoft want to take over, no problems, right? So, but again, at the moment we feel that it is necessary to have this to make it easier to share the code and to use the code and to find the code, because actually having a single place where you can look for the function doesn't mean, because otherwise what you have is that of course everyone can have the code in their own website, right, in their own blog and somewhere, but it's much harder to find. And what we can do here, we can do a lot of things. Imagine, for example, the ability for an LLM to look for a function that you want. Here you have a single repository, right? It's much easier rather than exploring the internet in a completely unstructured way, because we have additional metadata. We know the author. We can make assumption that some author that has a, if you look at the version, for example, here, I show you this example. Here we have 2 versions, okay? Now, if you open this and you see the version, and you see when you see a library that has not been updated for a while, I'm talking about other languages, maybe this library is not used much, or this library is used a lot, right? So one thing that we adopted here, you see that I still have to, we completed the documentation, we still have to advise the actual author that if they add a README file in MD format, you basically can provide a page that has all the documentation, right? So we have a standard way to describe it, because 1 week ago we didn't have that, but we didn't expect, to be honest, we didn't expect so many submissions in so small amount of time. So I'm very happy for that. When I said we completely missed the prediction, I was expecting this to take off in 2, 3, 4 months. To be honest, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Wow, that's awesome.
I do have a question from Donald that I wanted to bring up as well as we're getting close to wrapping up here, and then also give you an opportunity to maybe provide any final takeaways. But let me bring this on screen. So a little off topic, but you wanted to know if you had any thoughts on the depreciation of metric sets. And Marco thinks it's going to be a good answer.
No, the problem is that. Okay, I think I can say that. When I saw this feature, my feedback was, it doesn't make any sense. Nobody will use it. It's just a duplication of what you already have. What's the point? That was my honest feedback. Okay, I don't mention other elements because this would be probably, I don't know, I could violate some NDA. But saying what I thought and what I think of the feature is true. I mean, I don't have any problem saying. I mean, I don't like to say, oh, I said that, I saw that. I don't like to say that, okay? But because you asked me, I say, look, you are asking me what I think. I think that this is obviously the natural conclusion of a feature that did not have any reason to exist.
Fair.
What's the point?
Well, it's like in your shared opinion rather than facts or anything, which
understand
is
one thing.
totally allowed.
So a better analogy could have been because actually nobody used this. I don't know anyone who used this. I don't know. Do you know someone who used this feature?
I've never implemented it, so
no.
While another feature because the conversation is if a feature is in preview, it could be killed. Okay, that's the point. Now, to be honest, this is true also for the features that are GA, but the features that are GA survive for a longer time. The better analogy is the data mart. The data mart has been in public preview for years, and then it has been deprecated, right?
Yeah.
In this case, the problem has been for Microsoft that it was a feature adopted by several customers, not too many, but a few customers had a strong dependency on it. So, and they were maybe not just one, they didn't have just one data mart, they had many. So the problem is that they created a feature that didn't have a clear replacement with the same license. Because the real issue is that if you use the data mart and you don't have Fabric, you don't have the exact correspondence. It's not that, oh, now the new feature does this. For example, in the case of the metric set, the problem is that what's the actual difference between a metric set and another feature they had and the measure? Nothing.
True.
There are no differences. It's just the name. It's just I don't know, a marketing stunt. I have no idea, or I cannot say why they build it. But the point is that it's a feature that has no future. It's a feature that has no purpose. So what's the point, right? What's the point of the feature? I'm very bold. This is the same thing. I provided this. Believe me, I provided this feedback to Microsoft, so I don't have any problem in saying this. And so, of course, there are the obvious sentences that you have to write in these cases. But the point is that it was a duplication of the measure.
Yeah.
So
it's the feature built that no one was asking for, kind of, right?
It's a feature probably created for reasons that are not a customer request. Correct.
Yep.
But
it's a valid point. As we're wrapping, go ahead.
What I'm saying is that is extremely different. Comparing a metric set with functions. With the functions, I think that we are. Maybe it's just the hype for the initial enthusiasm. Possibly, I don't know. We will see. So we have to see what happens in 3-6 months, to be honest. But to be honest, that's I don't see any reason why this feature should not evolve. Actually, my only issue is that delaying the GA means that more companies will not be able to use the feature in production. That's the only problem I see. I don't have any doubt about this feature. Like, I don't have any doubt, by the way, for the time intelligence. The calendar-based time intelligence is a very, very, very good feature. But if you don't have the problem today and you already solved the problem in other ways yesterday, maybe that you can just skip it. Eventually, I will use it, but I don't have if I don't have an immediate need and I already solved the problem in other ways. Again, I mean, for your next project, for example, if you created your own date table with your own, I don't know, templates, or you use, for example, Bravo with the pattern that we publish. I mean, we publish a pattern for the 445, and you use Bravo 2 clicks and you have all the 445 measures. I mean, it just works. Should you change those that you already have? No. Should you use the new one for the new projects? Potentially, yes, because there are advantages and performance improvements if you use that. But to be honest, it's more important if you have direct query. If you have an import mode and you don't have too many years in your date table, you might not see the difference. Of course, it's easier, it's better, it's more, it's more feature. There are many, many advantages. And as soon as we have time, we will publish in Bravo for Power BI an update of the template so that you will be able to say, oh, I want a new date table with all the time intelligence functions using the calendar-based time intelligence. And you will get the more efficient system with just one click. So that's good. But the functions is a game changer. So
oh yeah, I'm excited to see what your library will have in the next year as people continue to contribute.
Yeah,
go ahead, Steve.
Clearly, some need with the amount of uptake we've seen, and submissions to your library as well. So clearly, huge unmet need that's been there.
Of course, I already see trends which are we see more and more libraries about the SVG is a big area of investment. There is something about specific calculations. I saw something about the custom format string is another area, because they are easy to, it's a problem that everybody has. So everybody can use that kind of calculation regardless of the model. So it's obvious that they are the first ones, but probably there will be much else. So for example, one task I have between the many I have in my backlog. For every DAX patterns we publish on daxpatterns.com, we should be able to create the functions to implement the pattern in your model with the minimal effort. Because today, you have to understand how the pattern works, and then you have to interpret the pattern for your model. Maybe that you can make mistakes doing that, and for sure, it's a time-consuming process. Whereas with the function, it would be probably easier to just implement the pattern in your model. You still have to understand how it works, so you still have to adapt the model.
Of course.
From a coding perspective, it will be certainly faster. So that's something that, and so we have like 10, 20, between 10 and 20 patterns to publish as libraries. We just started with 1 or 2, but we have more to publish. And also the ones that we publish are just an initial, so we didn't cover all the examples, all the patterns, because every pattern has a number of scenarios, and we didn't cover all of them because we wanted to start to publish something. But of course, this is just every library today is like a version 0.1, 0.2. Nobody is saying, oh, this is version 1, right? So no, we still have. Also because there is another problem. The function itself is in public preview, which means that there could be some change in the syntax, right? So we might expect that something could be adapted. So that's, of course, for these small libraries, it's fine. It would be a small change. Changes, I mean, not changes in existing code, but it could be improvements in the syntax that will allow you to do something better. For example, a very, very common request is giving a column reference. I would like to know the table reference, for example. And today we don't have a way to neither extract the table from a column reference or check that two parameters belong to the same table, for example. These are like constraints over parameters. But again, not having this feature for GA, that's fine. I always say, look, that this could come after GA. It will improve the ability to create more sophisticated libraries that are safer to use, because you will see the mistake before you use it, and otherwise now you can call a library, not see any problem. When you use it, you might see that you passed the wrong argument. So the ability for the editor to detect that you're not doing the right thing can be improved if we have more tools in the language. But again, it can be improved later. So I don't see any problem in releasing the
Yeah, lots to come out, and I'm sure we'll have to have you on again after the language has evolved and very early days now. We can talk more. Absolutely amazing session today, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There was so much there. Yeah, and thank you everyone for sticking around. I think pretty much everyone has watched the whole hour and a half here, so we're really grateful for everyone. Obviously, this video will be available on repeat as well. Definitely want to say thank you for coming on twice in about a month. So we're really lucky and honored to have you on again.
We had you on in the summer for the semantic panel. So thanks for the return.
Which is doing well.
But it's been great as always, Marco. I know that with any topics that we do, we always have more to talk about than there ever is time, but it's always a great conversation to be able to deep dive into this stuff.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
And we'll speak soon.
Everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.